Welcome back, students. Today, we will continue Unit 8. This is Video 5. Today, we will review past tense verbs. Do you remember when we used past tense verbs? We use past tense verbs to talk about something that's already happened. Look at my calendar. It shows an X on Friday. Anything that happens on Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, or Monday of that week happened in the past. The past talks about things that have already happened. They are done. So we are going to review past tense verbs. But before we do, let's check the homework I gave you last time. Here's the homework from last time. If you remember, there are 4 photos, and you have to match the sentence with each photo and fill in the missing words. Let's look at number 1. The first one says, the patient has a broken leg and needs a wheelchair. They filled in the word patient and wheelchair because we see in the first picture, there's a man, he has a cast on his leg, he broke his leg, and now he is in a wheelchair. Let's look at number 2. There's a man and he's pushing a cart. That table with wheels is called a cart in English. It looks like he has sheets and towels on his cart. Let's read the sentence. The orderly is delivering linens. So for number 2, you should have written orderly and linens. The orderly is delivering linens. Let's look at number 3. What do you see in that picture? There's an old woman, and she's using something to help her walk. Do you remember what that's called? That's a walker. She is using a walker. For number 3, you should write walker. She is using a walker. In the last picture, there are 2 people. It looks like those 2 people work together. What do you call 2 people who work together? Co-workers, right. And it looks like the man is giving something to the woman. Maybe they are medical supplies. Let's read the sentence. He is giving some medical supplies to his coworker. He is giving some medical supplies to his coworker. How did you do? Did you get them right? We'll keep practicing. Now we will move on to reviewing past tense verbs. What are some of the clue words that tell us to use past tense verbs? Do you remember talking about clue words? They're words that help us know if something happened in the past, before, if something is happening now, in the present, or if something will happen in the future. We are going to talk about clue words that you see with past tense. Yesterday. If something happened yesterday, it already happened. That goes with past tense. Last. Last night, last month, last week, last year. Last means past tense. Ago. I got married 2 years ago. That means I got married 2 years in the past, like in 2018, past tense. If you see a year, and that year is before 2020, then that could also mean past tense. Sometimes we see this morning, and that means past tense. This one can be tricky. But if it is the afternoon or the evening, and someone says this morning, they mean earlier that day, and that is past tense. Finally, if you have a time, and the time is something that happened earlier, that could also mean past tense. So let's talk about regular past tense verbs. Remember, most past tense verbs end with ed. We call these regular past tense verbs. Let's look at some examples. Cook. Cook in the past tense becomes cooked. Walk. Walk in the past tense becomes walked. Move. Move in the past tense becomes moved. All of these verbs become past tense verbs just by adding ed. These ed verbs can make 3 different sounds. Do you remember that? We talked about ed can make 3 different sounds. Sometimes ed sounds like a T. Let's look at some examples. Say them with me. Helped. Helped. Do you hear the T sound at the end of that? Helped. Worked. Worked. Can you say it with me? Worked. Picked up. Picked up. Picked up. Do you hear the T? Sometimes ed sounds sound like D. They make the D sound, D. Let's look at some examples. Say them with me. Stayed, stayed. Prepared, prepared. Cleaned, cleaned. Delivered, delivered. At the end of all of these words, we hear D, the D sound. Sometimes ed sounds like id. Let's look at some examples. Say them with me. Visited, visited. Wanted, wanted. Needed, needed. The ends of these words, you hear a id at the end. So past tense verbs can make 3 different sounds. Now let's practice these 3 different sounds by playing a game. I'm going to tell you a word, and I want you to decide. Do you hear the t sound at the end? Do you hear the d sound at the end? Or do you hear an id sound at the end? I'll say a word, and you choose which ending you hear. Our first word is painted, painted. Yesterday, the art class painted a picture. Yesterday, the art class painted a picture. What do you hear at the end of painted? Did you guess the id sound? Then you're right. Your next word is listened, listened. The students in the class listened to their teacher. What do you hear at the end of listened? Did you guess a D? Listened. It ends with the D sound. Your next word is played. The children played with their toys. The children played with their toys. Played. What do you hear at the end of played? Right, it's another D sound. Played. Okay. Your next word is asked. Asked. The children asked their mother for a cookie. The children asked their mother for a cookie. What do you hear at the end of asked? Right, the T sound. Your next word is started. The movie started at 7 p.m. The movie started at 7 p.m. Started. Yep, it's the id sound, started. How about talked? What do you hear when I say talked? What sound do you hear at the end? Yesterday, the two friends talked on the phone for 30 minutes. They talked on the phone. Talked. Right, the T sound. How about watched? Watched. Last night, my family watched a movie on Netflix. Watched. Watched. That's another T sound. Watched. You hear that at the end? Our last word is lived. Lived. Before I moved to Georgia, I lived in New York. I lived in New York. What do you hear at the end of lived? Right, it's a D sound. How did you do? Keep practicing and listening to the ends of these words so you get better at pronouncing past tense verbs. Some past tense verbs don't end with ed. We call these verbs irregular past tense verbs. They do not follow the ed rule. The only way to learn these words is to practice them. We are going to practice some of those words right now. Do you know the past tense of go? Went. Yesterday, I went to the grocery store. What's the past tense of make? Made. She made the beds 20 minutes ago. She made the beds 20 minutes ago. How about meet? Do you remember the past tense of meet? Met. Hawa met her husband in 2002. Hawa met her husband in 2002. Take. Do you remember the past tense of take? Took. The children took a nap at noon. The children took a nap at noon. Now let's practice using regular and irregular past tense verbs in a sentence. Let's look at this activity. It says, Alan is an orderly. What did he do yesterday? Complete the sentences. Use the simple past. So we will complete these 5 sentences using the words in the word bank and putting those words in simple past. Right now, the verbs are in the base form. You need to fill in the blanks using simple past. Let's look at the example. He blank breakfast. We look at the word bank and we can see the best choice there is eat. What is eat in simple past? Ate. So number 1, he ate breakfast. Is ate an irregular or regular verb? Right. Ate is an irregular verb. It doesn't end in ed. So I want you to pause the video and look at numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 and figure out the best word to fill those sentences. Then we'll finish together. Did you fill in the words? Okay, let's check your answers. Number 2, he made. He made the beds. One of the duties of an orderly is to make the beds. So Alan made the beds. Number 3, he cleaned the furniture. Remember, orderlies help nurses. Part of Alan's duties are to clean the room. So he cleaned the furniture. Number 3, he delivered x-rays. He delivered x-rays. Is delivered a regular or irregular verb? Delivered is a regular verb. It ends in ed, just like cleaned in number 2. Number 5, he met patients. He met patients. Is met regular or irregular? Right, met is an irregular verb. It doesn't follow the ed rule. Today was a great review of how to write and how to say simple past tense verbs. We learned that there are regular past tense verbs that end with ed, and there are irregular verbs that you have to learn. In the next video, we will talk about how to put these verbs in questions that begin with what and where. So follow me to video 6. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.